There's something truly special about packing up your gear, heading out into the wilderness, and setting up camp far away from the noise of the city. The crackle of a campfire, the canopy of stars overhead, it's a chance to connect with nature and disconnect from everything else. But sometimes, when you're out there in the vast, quiet darkness, you realize you're not as alone as you thought. The quiet isn't empty, it's just holding its breath. And the things that go bump in the night aren't always raccoons or falling pine cones. Today we're going to be looking at some of the most disturbing camping encounters ever caught on camera. These are moments when the tranquility of the great outdoors was shattered by something truly terrifying. From shadowy figures that don't belong to sounds that will make the hair on your arm stand up, these stories are a stark reminder that the wilderness keeps its own secrets. The people in these videos thought they were just capturing a memory, but instead they captured a nightmare. So, get comfortable. Maybe turn on a few extra lights because the stories we're about to explore are genuinely unsettling. These aren't just campfire tales, they are real moments of fear, documented for all to see. And you're going to want to stick around for the final story because the audio it captured from the darkness is something that will stay with you long after the video ends. So, before we get into it, please give the like button a gentle tap. It really helps the channel out. Okay, let's get started. Our first story comes from a solo camper named Alex, who was spending a weekend in the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest. He loved the solitude, the feeling of being the only person for miles around. On his second night, a thick fog rolled in, blanketing his campsite in an eerie silence. He was tucked inside his small one-person tent, reading by the light of a headlamp, when he heard it, a soft rhythmic crunching of leaves just outside. It wasn't the scattered skittish sound of a deer or a squirrel. This was slow, deliberate, and heavy, like someone was walking. Alex froze, straining his ears. The footsteps stopped right next to his tent, so close he could have reached out and touched whatever was there, if not for the thin nylon wall separating them. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He slowly, silently, reached for his phone, fumbling to open the camera app. He didn't dare use the flash. He just aimed the lens at the side of the tent where the sound had stopped, and then he saw it. A tall, slender shadow was cast against the tent wall, distorted by the fog and the faint moonlight. It was unmistakably human-shaped, but it was just standing there, motionless, watching. Minutes felt like hours. Alex didn't move, didn't breathe. The figure remained perfectly still, a silent sentinel in the foggy night. He kept his phone recording, his hand trembling so badly the image was shaking. Who would be out here in the middle of nowhere with no gear, no light, just standing outside his tent? The silence was finally broken by a twig snapping loudly, much further away this time. The shadow outside his tent seemed to react to the sound, turning its head before it. Slowly, silently, moved away, its form dissolving back into the thick fog as if it were never there. Alex didn't sleep for the rest of the night, just watched the shaky footage over and over, his sense of isolation replaced by a profound and chilling fear. A group of 4 friends, Maya, Ben, Chloe, and Liam, were on their annual camping trip, this time in the remote backcountry of the Appalachian Mountains. They were experienced campers, used to the typical sounds of the forest at night, the hooting of owls, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of small animals. They had a roaring fire going. They were telling stories, laughing, and recording bits of their trip on a small camcorder set up on a tripod to capture the memory. The atmosphere was perfect, until just after midnight, when a sound ripped through the peaceful night that made all of them fall silent at once. It was a scream. But it wasn't an animal scream, not a bobcat or a fox. It was a high-pitched, blood-curdling shriek that sounded terrifyingly human, yet it was filled with a kind of raw, primal agony that none of them had ever heard before. It echoed through the valley, seeming to come from all directions at once, and it was followed by another, and then another. Ben, who had been filming, instinctively swung the camera around, pointing it into the pitch-black woods beyond the firelight as if he could somehow capture the source of the horrifying sound. The laughter and conversation from moments before were now replaced with wide-eyed terror. They huddled closer to the fire, the only source of light and comfort in the oppressive darkness. The screams continued intermittently for what felt like an eternity, sometimes sounding distant, other times seeming to get closer, just beyond the tree line. They whispered panicked theories to each other. Was someone hurt? Was it a prank? Or was it something else entirely? Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves sent a fresh jolt of fear through them. The camcorder kept rolling, capturing their terrified faces illuminated by the fire and the awful, unexplained screams that haunted the darkness around them, turning their fun camping trip into a night of pure dread. A father and son, David and 12-year-old Toby, were on a fishing trip deep in the Alaskan wilderness. They were seasoned outdoorsmen and knew the rules of bear country by heart. Keep a clean camp, store food in bear-proof containers far from your tent, and always be aware of your surroundings. They had set up their camp near a river teeming with salmon, and David was filming his son casting a line into the water, hoping to capture the moment he caught his first big fish. The day was peaceful, the scenery was breathtaking, and everything was going exactly as planned. That's when David, looking through the camera's viewfinder, noticed a movement in the trees on the far side of the river. It was a large grizzly bear. At first, there was no cause for alarm. The bear was a good distance away and seemed more interested in the fish than in them. David kept the camera rolling, narrating quietly about the magnificent creature. But then, the bear's behavior changed. It stopped fishing, lifted its head, and stared directly at them. It took a step into the river, and then another, heading straight for their position. The casual nature documentary David was filming suddenly turned into something far more sinister. David told Toby to slowly back away towards their gear, never taking his eyes off the bear. The grizzly was now halfway across the river, moving with a purpose that sent a chill down David's spine. This wasn't a curious bear. This bear was closing the distance with incredible speed. David yelled, clapped his hands, and made himself look as big as possible, all while the camera continued to record the terrifying advance. The bear emerged from the water, shaking its massive body, and let out a low growl, now only yards away. The footage captures the heart-stopping moment the bear lunges forward in a bluff charge, a massive wall of fur and teeth, stopping just short of them before finally, mercifully, turning and retreating back into the woods. In the arid open desert of Nevada, a place that's, famous for strange sightings, two amateur astronomers, Chloe and Ben, had set up camp for the night. Their goal was to capture the Perseid meteor shower, and they had these high-powered cameras and telescopes all pointed at the clear, dark sky. The night was just so still and the visibility was, honestly, perfect. For hours they watched and filmed, just marveling at the occasional streak of a meteor, but around 2 in the morning, they noticed something that was definitely not a meteor, or a plane, or even a satellite. It was a cluster of 3 bright orange lights, just hanging silently in the sky. At first they thought, maybe those are military flares from a nearby base, but the lights weren't falling. They were holding a perfect triangular formation, completely motionless and totally silent. Ben swung his main camera, which was recording a time-lapse, to focus right on the objects. The lights just hovered there for several minutes, pulsing with this soft orange glow. Then, without any warning, the lights began to move, not like any conventional aircraft, but with impossible speed and precision. They darted across the sky, stopped on a dime, and then rearranged from a triangle into a straight line. Chloe and Ben could only watch in stunned silence, their own cameras documenting the entire event. The lights performed these just incredible aerial maneuvers for nearly 10 minutes, zipping back and forth across the vast expanse of the night sky in a way that, honestly, just defied all known laws of physics. They felt a growing sense of unease, that feeling of being watched by whatever was controlling those lights. Then, as suddenly as they appeared, the 3 lights shot upwards in perfect unison, accelerating to an impossible speed and vanishing from sight in less than a second. All that was left was the silent desert, the stars, and the chilling footage of their otherworldly encounter. A young woman named Sarah was vlogging her multi-day solo hike along a lesser-known trail in the forests of Colorado. For the first 2 days, her videos were filled with beautiful scenery, cheerful commentary, and tips for other solo hikers. She felt completely at ease, really empowered by her journey. But on the 3rd day, a nagging feeling started to creep in, the feeling of being watched. She would stop to rest and hear a twig snap behind her, but when she turned, there was nothing there. She'd dismiss it as an animal, but honestly, the feeling just wouldn't go away. While filming a segment about identifying edible plants, she panned her camera across the dense woods behind her. Later that evening, while reviewing the footage in her tent, she saw it. For just a split second, deep within the trees and shadows, she could make out the shape of a person, standing partially hidden behind a large pine tree, watching her. Her blood ran cold. It wasn't an animal. Someone had been following her. Every strange sound, every feeling of being watched from the past day, suddenly clicked into place. She was miles from the nearest road, completely alone, and now she knew someone was out there with her. Panicked, Sarah packed up her camp in the dark, her hands shaking as she shoved her gear into her backpack. She decided against using a headlamp, terrified of giving away her position. Using only the faint moonlight, she started hiking through the night, constantly looking over her shoulder, her camera still recording intermittently in night vision mode. The footage is a terrifying, shaky record of her escape, filled with the sounds of her ragged breathing and the constant paranoid scanning of the dark, silent trees around her, knowing that somewhere in that darkness, a pair of eyes could be following her every move. Our final story involves two brothers, Mark and Tom, who were camping near an old abandoned mining town in Arizona, a place that's rumored to be haunted. They were skeptics, honestly more interested in the history and the adventure than any ghost stories. They set up their tent, built a fire and placed a digital audio recorder on a nearby stump, hoping to maybe catch some interesting wildlife sounds like coyotes howling. As the night wore on, the air grew cold, and an unusual silence just kind of fell over the campsite. The usual night sounds of insects and animals just stopped. Feeling a bit unnerved by the sudden quiet, they decided to turn in. They left the audio recorder running, zipped up their tent and tried to get some sleep. The next morning they packed up and headed home, forgetting all about the recording until a few days later. Mark plugged the recorder into his computer and started listening back. For the first couple of hours, it was just the sound of the crackling fire and their distant conversation. But then, after the point where they had gone into the tent, he heard something else. Faintly at first, then growing clearer, were whispers. They were low and raspy and seemed to be coming from right next to the recorder. He couldn't make out all the words, but he could clearly hear a man's voice whisper, "Get out," followed by what sounded like a woman softly crying. Chills shot down his spine. There was no one else there. The voices were layered over each other, whispering unintelligible things, their tones full of malice and sorrow. The most terrifying part was a child's faint whisper, right at the end of the recording that simply said, "He sees you." The brothers had gone looking for history but had captured something far older and more terrifying on that small digital recorder. The wilderness is a beautiful and awe-inspiring place, but as these stories show, it can also hold some truly terrifying secrets. The line between a peaceful retreat and a fight for survival can be thinner than the wall of a tent. These videos are a chilling reminder that when you step into the wild, you're stepping into a world that operates by its own rules. And honestly, you are never truly, completely alone. It's a sobering thought that the most advanced camera gear can't protect you. It can only document the horror when things go wrong. So the next time you're out there enjoying the serenity of a crackling fire under the stars, remember to stay alert, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. The forest has eyes and ears, and sometimes they pay a little too much attention. We hope these stories serve not to scare you away from camping, but to remind you to always be prepared, be aware of your surroundings, and never, ever underestimate the strange and unexplained things that can happen in the dark. Have you ever had a creepy or unexplainable experience while camping? We'd genuinely love to hear about it. Share your own scary stories in the comments section below. You never know, your story might be featured in a future video. Thank you so much for watching and for your incredible support. If you enjoyed these strange and terrifying stories and want to see more, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Stay safe out there.